All right, I'm gonna keep running with this. So what I wanted to say is that um, uh, um, so I think that I had a guitar teacher that changed things for me in terms of my confidence, but also the kind of experiences that I had with the guitar. You can maybe say like what's a professional player and what's not a professional player. That might not be as significant, but is still part of what kind of experiences you are having with something that you're doing. Some of my greatest experiences that informed a lot of my confidence in recent years had been operating as a professional driver, and also operating and also having experiences around guitar playing. And a lot of that, it came from the different approaches that I took to both those fields of activity that were informed by people who were very great at that made things different for me. So I had like, I had driven. So I was referencing pizza in here. So I had driven pizza for a long time before I ever became a professional driver. And when I was driving as a pizza driver, I would drive like, and I think maybe in the past I was a little bit more even principled as a younger person. And sometimes that's why it's disingenuous when people write off people who are young. Like, you take a young student that has something to say in front of a class or in front of a professor, or even you take a young person who has something to say on a Bible study on Wednesday night. A person who's barely an adult they have interest in being there, or they have something to say, and a lot of people would write them off. But actually, sometimes your younger people actually are more principled and disciplined, enthusiastic, and sometimes competent or knowledgeable in certain senses. So like some people would say in the past, never trust a hippie that's over 30. But actually, maybe you don't get to be you're not actually a hippie until you're 30, because once you get to be 30, you're more laid back, and you're a little bit more you're a little bit more you're a little bit more laid back than when you were young. When you get older, but when I was younger, I was more so principled. I think I'm still principled a lot, but I'm just because of the hangover of who I was when I was younger. But I was more principled, and at that time, when I was a pizza driver, I wouldn't. I'd wake up at like 4 or 5 in the afternoon, commute to work, start work at about 5 or 6, and then I work all the way up until about like anywhere from 12 to 3 a.m. The store would close, and then it'd be another hour of cleaning after that to get out of there, and then commute home. So I'd get home at again about at least about four anywhere from 3 to 4 in the morning, and I had been productive and done well for myself at work, but then I would have to I wouldn't have much on my hands. I think at that time I was addicted to peanut butter M&Ms. It was the only thing I had going for me in life was peanut butter M&Ms. So I would come home, and my mom would have a meal, like a home cooked meal, wrapped in wrapped in the fridge, like on a plate, and I'd enjoy that meal. Where actually some traditions say that it's not good to eat food at night. Like some traditions of India say that it's actually not good to eat food at night because it interrupts sleep, and it's not healthy on a very subtle level to eat a large meal in the nighttime, especially like going to sleep. But I was aware of that then because I had been already picking up books about the East. But I had worked up an appetite. You can imagine from what I described there. But uh, and then I would enjoy like some little peanut butter M&Ms by myself, like in a little chair, and I go to sleep, and then I wake up and do it again. But I didn't at that time. I didn't even want to think about doing a different job because I thought that I'm in this much traffic all day long. If I even start to think about I'm about to get up out of here, I'm gonna slip, and that's gonna cost me. I watched a documentary about the military, and they said that in times past, sometimes there was like different sometimes you do something as critical and dangerous as like certain occupations, and you can develop a level of superstition because maybe you've seen the way very subtle things can play out, and so you can become. They say sometimes military people can be very superstitious. And one example is that when they're coming close to the end of a tour of some kind, or maybe getting close to a period of break, like rest and relaxation, that's exactly when they can slip up enough not to make it back from a mission. So some of them would be aware of that in the past. but I didn't come from that. But I had that same feeling as a driver, because some people could say that traffic is as dangerous and critical maybe as some type of military post or duty, because it's the same forces and the same stakes and the same it can be the same traumatic, violent outcome in traffic. So you have your life on your hands, you have pedestrians' life on your hands, and you have other motorists on your hands, and that can be man, women, children of any age or stature are on your hands as a driver in traffic, just doing delivery. Because if you make a mistake, you can affect them critically. My father was involved in a car accident as a small child with his sibling, and my father escaped that unscathed, and his sibling was injured for life, and he was disabled for life from a child, and when he became an older person, he thought that he struggled. He never actually completely got over the trauma of that, and the deprivation of that. It injured him. Just to appreciate that, he was always aware of how much of life, of life he may not have got to enjoy and experience because of that incident. And I don't know if the other driver was at fault or was careless, but they could have easily been at fault or careless, and it cost him like that. And so he always, even though he did a lot of cool things, my dad, when my dad talks about his other siblings, he had about like maybe 5 or 7 siblings. None of them are as impressive in his eyes as that sibling. I can just tell because a different look comes over him whenever he refers to him that had been his older brother, and that he managed to have a family, that older brother, and he was the cooler of my father's siblings. Also, he was a musician, and sometimes setbacks and deprivations actually make the greatest of people, and because the life overcomes obstacles and in a great way. So sometimes people with setbacks can be outstanding. And I referenced in this film that my closest friend of childhood, who taught me how to ride a bike and taught me a lot of things about life, he was visually deprived, but he had social graces and humor and confidence and assertiveness that were very remarkable. But all I meant to say is that you have that on your hands in traffic. You can potentially cost yourself or another person that much in traffic. So at that time, I didn't consider anything else but being a driver, because I didn't want to slip up. But then at one point, we had another driver come through who was moonlighting from another profession, and he put up flyers to become a professional school bus driver. And that I didn't become a professional driver at that point, but that was the thing that got me out of that trajectory of being locked into that way of living, because I was doing well as far as earning income, but I was time poor. And but all I meant to say is that but I was talking about being a professional is that by me approaching the guitar differently, I now take the guitar with me, and I avail myself of the opportunity to practice anywhere I go. And the guitar and by doing that, I've got better. So what I meant to say is that, so I was driving that long as a pizza driver, as a driver, but then when I moved into, but I had never had passengers with me, and it's a different experience to multitask your attention when you have people with you in the car or in the bus. And then but in doing that, it's another skill set to drive with passengers. Then when I got to the point of being a professional driver, the difference between me being a pizza driver and a school or city bus driver, which I've been both, is that you have different experiences now. So what I was maybe already a professional to a different degree, but I'm now having different experiences, and that's what's unique more so than the title of being professional. And it's the same with an instrument. So when I've appreciated that when you have a guitar with you, there's certain graces about you, and so when you're the author Arthur in the East, they say that it's not good to be attached to people and things, but if there are one thing that you can be attached to, that's the weapon of a soldier. A soldier's connection to their weapon is not an ordinary attachment like other objects and people, and it has different meanings spiritually and psychologically. And I think it's the same for a musician, where the attachment to an instrument is it's deeper than another object, and it's not as egregious as being attached in general, similar to like a soldier.